Folks, today I'm standing in front of the beautiful Alabama Hills, which is on the eastern side of the Sierras in California. And I love being a nomad and a gypsy, living the full-time life in my van or RV, whichever you're living in, because I can come to beautiful places like this. But there are certain difficulties with living this life that we all tend to face, and I get those questions all the time. Well, how do I choose a home state? How will I get mail on the road? What about health insurance? If I don't have a home, how will I get health insurance? How will I get an address for a driver's license if I don't have a home state, if I don't live anywhere? If I'm a nobody that lives nowhere, boy, isn't that really hard to live that way? And yes, there are a lot of problems that it does create. And so I've decided to shoot a series of videos to answer your questions. Now, I'm afraid they're going to be talking head videos, just me standing here looking at you. At least I'm giving you a beautiful backdrop to look at my ugly face. But there's so much information to give to you that I'm going to do a series. There'll be 4 videos. Then the videos will be, first will be state of residence. We're going to cover that today. Second will be a driver's license, how to get your driver's license, how to get an address, how to get the mail for your address. The third one will be on mail forwarding specifically, how to choose a mail forwarder, who they are, where they are, and while you travel, how do you get mail on the road? I've never had all these. I've got answers for all these things, but I'm afraid you're just going to have to endure these long, boring videos to get to them. And finally, we'll talk about health insurance. That's become a really big issue in our world, and with Obamacare, it's finally accessible for most of us. Some of you are 65 and older, have Medicare, probably many of you, and so it's not an issue you face. For those younger than 65, and one of my goals in my website and on these videos is to encourage younger people to do this. You can do this. But health insurance becomes an issue, and so we're going to talk about that in the 4th video. And one thing I want to make very, very clear, I am not giving you the answers in these videos. Since 9/11 and the Twin Towers fell, our world has changed radically. And then Obamacare came in and brought us all new changes. For these videos, I've been researching what other bloggers say, and I'll go back to a video from a blog or a video even from 2014, and everything has changed. I go back and I read that. Well, that's not true anymore. This has changed since then. I go and I'll read another blog, and they'll say this, and that's not true anymore either. It's all changed. What I'm trying to say to you is, I'm going to give you the questions to ask, and what they are, for the most part, what they are right now in 2016. But by the time you're going full-time and traveling yourself, it may very well all have changed. So I'm not giving you the answers, I'm giving you the questions and telling you these are the things you need to research for yourself to find out, because it is all changing really fast. Obamacare particularly has changed things. I know RVers that changed states just recently because of Obamacare, and now the state they changed to has changed, and so it's not working for them there either. These are big issues, and we need to address them. I'm going to try and answer them as best I can, but it still falls on you to do your research and find out the current information for when you're watching this video. You might be watching this video 5 years after I make it, and everything's changed. And the Real ID Act is coming on in some of it takes effect in 2016, some of it takes effect in 2020. If your driver's license doesn't have a little gold star on it, you can't use that to get on an airplane anymore. And so that becomes a big issue, and we're going to talk about that in its own video because it's a big subject. These are all complicated subjects, and I'm afraid I'm going to try and talk fast and go through them quickly. I'll try and put up the information on the screen below you. It can be a little distracting, I know. Hopefully what I'd like to see that happen from this is you will watch these videos and take notes, and when I put up a note on the screen, maybe you'll write that down, and so you have a list of things. On my website, Cheap RV Living, I'll cover all this in posts that go along with the videos, so I'm really going to encourage you to go there and follow that down where I'll have it all written out for you. And so they tie together. Cheap RV Living blog. I'll try to put up the links in the videos as we go along so that they work together. Okay, well, let's start talking today about choosing a state of residence. And again, it's a big, complicated subject, and I'm going to talk fast. So the great thing about a video is you can go back, start over, and say, what did he say? And what does that mean? And you can email me and comment. You can email me through my blog, through my forum, cheaprvliving.com/forums, or add a comment on the bottom here, and I'll try to answer all your questions to the best of my ability. I am no expert. I am no lawyer. First, let me just say that one of the big things we're talking about is that which domicile in which state. Domicile is not the same as residence, because we all use the word resident when we actually mean domicile. You can have a residence in many states and spend a lot of time in many states, but you're only domiciled in one state. And domicile is a legal term that says this state has legal authority over you. Let me give you an example that may or may not apply to you, but eventually will. Say you're a Michigan resident and you're a snowbird and you travel and spend your winter in Arizona. You die in Arizona. You have a will, you have heirs, your family contests the will. They're going to be it's going to go to court. The judge is going to decide. Or you don't have a will, and then the courts decide everything for you. Which state has control of you? You're a Michigan resident, you have a driver's license that's Michigan, you died in Arizona. Well, domicile means all legal questions like that are decided in the state of Michigan. You will go to a Michigan court. That's domicile. We interchange the two, and we're going to do that here. We're going to talk about becoming a resident of a state when actually we mean the legal term domicile. Just a technicality, but I want you to understand that just because you have a residence in a state doesn't make you a resident of it. You're domiciled in one state at a time, and we're saying which state will you choose as a legal domicile. Okay, so I'm going to follow notes. I'm sorry, this is a lot to talk about, and I want to keep on track. The big thing is you could choose any state. Up till now, you lived in a certain place, you worked in a certain place, that was your state of domicile. But now, if you're a full-timer, you're going to live and travel all the time, you're going to be in different states all the time, even if you travel slowly, and not much, and a lot of nomads eventually settle down and spend more time in just a few states, you can still choose your state. And so there are factors to consider about which state you choose. The four factors to consider are economic costs. Living in one state will be cheaper than living in another state, and so why not choose the cheapest state to live in? It only makes sense. Another factor is the ease of living there and becoming a resident. Some states make it really hard to become a resident, Alaska in particular, because they give away money every year in this permanent fund dividend. So they make it very hard to become a resident, a legal resident, domicile. And so you want to choose a state that's easy and cheap to live in. So those are two of the big factors, and we'll talk about all these things. Finally, there's the issue of the politics of a state. Maybe you hate guns, maybe you love guns. If you hate guns, do you want to be a resident of a state that loves guns or promotes them? Or if you love guns, do you want to be a resident and domicile a state that hates them? And whatever your politics, and that's just one example that I've chosen. But there are other states. There are reasons you might choose one state for political reasons, other than just guns. That's a hot-button issue. Pot. If pot's important to you, if you need it for medical marijuana, or if you just enjoy it, then choose a state that makes pot legal. I mean, it's a factor you should definitely consider. Homeschooling. Some states, if you're young, you have children, you want to homeschool. Some states are very tough on homeschooling. Some states are very easy. So I know Nevada in particular I'm a Nevada resident. I'm going to talk about Nevada a lot. So I'm not saying that's for you, although it might very well be, but it's just what I know, so it's what I'm going to talk about. Nevada makes it very easy and very helpful in homeschooling. So some people choose Nevada for that reason alone. Political reasons are important. And if you're a very political person, take them into account. And so I have chosen Nevada. Part of the reason I chose Nevada was its libertarian viewpoints. There's an odd mixture of conservative and liberal in Nevada, and a lot of libertarianism mixed into the whole bunch, so I like the politics of Nevada. That played a small role in why I chose Nevada resident. If you hate guns, don't choose Arizona or Nevada, because every day you'll go to a store and there'll be somebody walking around with an open gun on their hip because they're big pro-gun states. If you hate guns, go with Illinois or some other state where they hate them. California hates guns. Okay, so on. But finally, there's a fourth location that most people never consider in their state of residence, and that is location. And I personally consider that to be one of the most important factors, and I want you to really move it up the list, is location. An example of that is now with Obamacare. Most states do not offer nationwide health care plans. So you're going to have to return to your home state to get your health insurance under Obamacare. That's not true with Medicare. If you're under Medicare, you can get it almost anywhere, and so that becomes less of an issue. But for us young people, not yet under Medicare, it's a big, big issue. It makes location very, very important. So we're going to talk about location first, then we'll come back and talk about these other four factors. Okay, so location. Got to keep my notes, sorry. One of the things to consider is you have to go there to get your driver's license. And so if it's, a lot of people choose, there are three big states that people choose. Let's say that first. South Dakota, Texas, and Florida. Those three states meet all the big issues pretty darned well. They all cover them well. You won't regret going with one of those three states. And so if you choose one of those three, then the question is, well, how do I narrow it down from those three? I've narrowed it down from 50 to 3, and it's those three. And so one of the big factors I would really urge you to consider is location. If you have to go back there to get your health care, you go to a doctor every year. You don't want to go to South Dakota because it's cold a whole lot of the year and hot a whole lot of the year. And it's very far away. It's 1,500, 2,000 miles away from most of us. Texas is in the middle of the country and far away. Just driving across Texas seems to take forever. Texas is out. If you have to go there all the time, unless you're a resident of Texas already, you actually live there. But you're a nomad. You don't live there. If you live in Texas, why are you watching this video? If you're a nomad, you travel everywhere. Same with Florida. I live out west. Now, if I lived back east, Florida would be the top of my list because I'd probably go there every winter to spend my winters there. Florida would be a great choice for me. But I'm out west. I spend almost all my time out west. I recommend everyone spend all your time out west for numerous reasons. Free and easy and cheap living on public land is the first. Easy access to algodonas with very inexpensive and high quality dental care, for prescription drugs, and eyeglasses. I go there every year, and I've been going there for every year for the last 6 years. So that's really cheap. It's cheaper and better and easier to live on the west, and it's prettier. That's my prejudiced opinion. It's just prettier, and it really is gorgeous. Look at the number of national parks east of the Mississippi River and look at them, how many on the west, and there's no question it's prettier out west than it is back east. It's big and it's open, and it's got a lot of free public camping. So that's why I recommend the west for all nomads. And better weather options. If you're out west, don't choose Florida. Why choose South Dakota? It's still 1,500 miles from where I winter in Arizona to South Dakota. If I have to go to the doctor, I don't want to drive 1,500 miles to go to the doctor. So I eliminated all of them and chose Nevada because Nevada is in this circle I travel in. If I draw a map, a circle, and I'm going to put one up on the screen for you, 750 miles, a long day's drive. I can go most places out west that I want to go and be a long day's drive from Nevada to get health care, to get whatever it is there that I need. That's why I chose Nevada. First, because there was no income taxes, and second, because of location. Very important, I think. Finally, another question to ask yourself about which state. Will it be a state I become a resident and never go again? That's what happens with South Dakota. This is so far out of your way, you become a South Dakota resident and you plan to never go there again except every 5 years when you get your driver's license. Or will it be a home base that you go to every year? And why would you want to consider a home base that you go to every year? Health insurance. If you're many women and many men, especially as you're older, want to see a doctor every year for preventative things, and that's really wise. Women have a number of health issues that come up every year, and so many of us after age 50, 55, 60, we should see a doctor every year for certain preventative tests, just to have the information. Well, if South Dakota is your home state and you spend your winters in Arizona, that's crazy. You don't want that. if you, again, and the same, if you spend your travel all the time west, you don't want to drive to California, Florida every year. That's 2,500 miles to see a doctor. It's silly. Same with Texas, too far out of your way. But Nevada is very close. From where I winter, in Quartzsite, Ehrenberg, Yuma, Lake Havasu, all along the Colorado River there in Arizona, I'm about 4 hours away from Nevada and my doctor. At any time, I got a doctor's appointment, it's a 4-hour drive. Yeah, that's long, it's boring, but I can do it, and I can go to the doctor at any time. And so, without nationwide health coverage, it really is important that you chose a state that has a home base you go to every year, you see your doctor. What else might you do at a home base every year? You might have a vet. A lot of us have pets. Maybe your vet is at your home base. You go to see the doctor, your dog goes to see the vet. Your cat goes to see the vet. Friends and family. If you go to a home base every year and you go to an RV park or you camp boondock out on the land, and there's lots of good boondocking in Nevada, that's one reason I chose it. It's mostly BLM land. It's BLM land everywhere. You can just go camp. Where I camp in Pahrump, I'm a Pahrump, Nevada resident. That's my home base. I can camp 4 years from the front door of a Walmart. 4 years. 4 miles from the front door of the Walmart, the Home Depot. I'm 6 miles from my doctor's office. I can walk. I have friends who walk to those places every day. I drive. I'm not that much of a walker. But I'm close. That's my point. And so you'll get to know people there. I meet the same people there every year. So a home base gives you a grounding. You're grounded into a home base. And that's a good thing sometimes. Even for a nomad to have a ground. Some places will have homes, you could buy a piece of land there, and a lot of nomads want to own a piece of land, and I think that's very reasonable. The two go together. There's no reason you can't have both a green thumb and itchy feet. And if you have a green thumb that says, boy, I need to plant things, I need to watch things grow in the soil and work the soil, but you also have itchy feet and you say, man, I just got to keep moving. That's a real contradiction, but a lot of us have it. And if you have a home base, you can do that. You can combine the two. You can buy a piece of land and have your grow some things and then do your traveling also. It can work really well. So that works. Now, if you're a real hunter, fisher, forager, if you like hunting and fishing and you like to gather from the forest, well, if you establish a home base, you're resident there. You can get a hunting and fishing license cheap. You can go fishing. You can go hunting. Every state has stocked fishing somewhere, and you can do your foraging in your home state. So those are the reasons why you might want to have a home base and not just a state you go to once a year, or once every 5 years. Most South Dakota residents never go to South Dakota ever, once every 5 years, and so it's something to consider. Where will your doctor be if that's true? And that's why a lot of people have left South Dakota and gone somewhere else, because their doctor's too far away. They can't go for a yearly visit. Okay, so that's location. Next, we're going to talk about why you choose one state over the other. You've got the big three, and I'm saying 4, and I'm actually going to include Tennessee and make that 5. The big 5. You narrow it down. Which of the big 5? South Dakota, Texas, Florida, Nevada, Tennessee. Tennessee's iffy, but some people do choose Tennessee, and for good reasons. Which state is cheaper? First, I choose a state that doesn't have an income tax. Why do you want to have to file an income tax every year? But it isn't really that simple. There are different kinds of wages. Let's talk about the 4 kinds of income. There are 4 kinds of income. The first income is wages. If you work, you go to work, your boss pays you money, that's a wage. If you're young, you're going to have wages, and if a state has an income tax, it will tax wages. So you want to choose a state that does not have an income tax. If you're young and you're working jobs and you have wages. And you also might think about this. If your state has an income tax and you work at a state that does not, so you work at Nevada, you're a resident of Colorado, which has an income tax, and you work at Nevada, Nevada does not have an income tax. Colorado may insist you pay them the income tax. I don't know that true. I'm not saying that's true. You're going to have to do your research and find out. I do know there are people who tell me that their state will insist that you pay them if you don't pay income tax where you work. Something to look into and consider. Second, you might be older. That's for younger people who are working. You may be older, have a pension. Some states have an income tax but do not tax pensions. If you're sure that's all you ever have, you can consider those states. It has an income tax, but you won't have to file because they don't tax pensions. There's too many variables here. I'm not going to do that research. You have to do that research. Finally, another one is, not finally, but another one is Social Security disability. If you're on Social Security or disability, many states, 36 states, do not tax Social Security. If your only income is Social Security, if that will always be your only income, then you can go to that state that has an income tax and never have to pay it. So that opens up a whole new world of states to you. And interest. I know people who worked hard, saved up a whole lot of money, and have retired, and are just living on the interest and pulling a little bit out of its savings every year. Some states tax interest, and some states don't. So a state that doesn't tax interest may be of interest to you if you were in that particular situation. Again, it's research you have to do. It's just not as simple as don't go to a state that has an income tax. Maybe you have such a low income you don't care if you have to file. And so that opens up many more states than just these few. I'll put up a list of the 7 states that do not have an income tax, and most of them, we eliminate them for various reasons, and you come down to the big 3, and I'm including Nevada, and some people are including Tennessee. Okay, so one state will be cheaper than another. That's what we're looking at. That's the topic. And the big one is income tax. If they have an income tax and you earn wages, you're going to pay a lot more to live in that state than another state. So why not go to a state without income tax? Second is sales tax. If you think you're in the future, you're going to be buying a new trailer, a new to you van. You still have to pay taxes on used vans. A $20,000 van. Well, you want to live in a state where they don't charge taxes, sales tax on that, because that's a lot of money. And I haven't done the research, and a lot of you just have to do that. And on my blog forum post, I'll have information on all that. But again, that's just a question to ask and research for yourself. That's my point. Inspections. Does your state have a vehicle inspection? If a state has an emissions inspection and you have to go back every year to get it, that's going to cost you a lot of money. If one year your vehicle doesn't pass inspections and you have to pay $400, $500, $1,000, sometimes there's a limit on how much you have to pay, then that's going to cost you a lot of time and effort and money. And so you want to get a state without them. The big 3 and Nevada either don't have them or they're not intrusive in your life. And so that's one of the big factors. One of the things to consider is that a state will have some counties will have an emissions and a safety inspection on your vehicle, and so you just register outside. That's that county. And Nevada is like that. The state doesn't have an emissions or a vehicle inspection, but a few counties do. Las Vegas and Reno. Those the counties with those cities, the big cities. Same thing with Arizona. The big cities, Phoenix Metro and Tucson Metro, those 2 counties have inspections, but no other state does. No other county in that state does. So that's something to look into also. But you want to avoid having an emissions. You don't want to bother the hassle of it every year. You don't want to have to return to it every year to get one. And it'll cost you money in the long run to get the inspections, and then in the long run to do all the work for them. How much will it cost you to register your vehicle in that state? It varies tremendously by state. How long is the registration good for? Do you save? I am a Nevada resident, got a Nevada driver's license. They are my domicile, legal authority over me. I register my vehicles in Arizona. And so Arizona has a 5-year registration, and it's much cheaper. I have a 2001 Chevy van, 1 ton, big issue, commercial. Is it a 1 ton? Is it a commercial vehicle? And so Nevada insisted that it was a commercial vehicle, and I'd have to convert it to an RV to not pay commercial insurance. It was very expensive. And so Arizona would let me register it as non-commercial. I saved $200 a year by registering it vehicle insurance and registering it in Arizona, which is why I registered it in Arizona. So vehicle insurance and registration are very, very important issues. Now let me address a side issue here when it comes to choosing the state. If you're thinking about a commercial vehicle that you turn into an RV, then you have a big question of vehicle insurance and full-timers insurance on that vehicle. And so insurance in one state will be much more than another. So that's a big issue. That's what we're talking about. Cost of registration and vehicle insurance, one state versus another. So for example, I know people who live in a school bus, a box van. A box van has a box in the back and a van nose. Great to live in. Big, huge space. A box truck. A truck in the nose and then a box behind it. A one-ton van. I have a one-ton van. It's extended. It's long. It carries a lot of weight. A step van. Step vans make great homes. Some of them have diesels, get good gas mileage. They're huge. They're pleasant to live in. A shuttle bus. An airport shuttle bus or a short school bus. Those are great things to live in. They're big. They have lots of windows. They're commercially built. They're industrial built. They'll last forever. They almost always come with diesels. So maybe you want to move into a commercial vehicle. Don't do it. Now it's oversimplified. Don't do it until you found out if you can get it relicensed non-commercial and you can buy insurance. I'm afraid I know people who bought a commercial vehicle in their state, found out they could not turn it into an RV. The state would not reissue the title. They had to carry commercial insurance. It was so expensive. They sold the vehicle at a loss, and they really regretted the decision. Some states make it easy to turn a vehicle into a commercial vehicle into an RV. I mean, some states make it very easy. Some states make it almost impossible. The majority of states make it difficult. And so find that out before you buy a commercial vehicle. I have a friend who bought a school bus in Tennessee, and it was super simple to re-register it as an RV. He went in, I think he filled out, I don't know these details for sure. You have to do all your research. I'm giving you the questions to ask. He went in, he filled out some forms, and voila, it was registered as an RV. Another state, it would be impossible. So find that out before you make any decisions about getting into a commercial vehicle. If you want insurance on your vehicle, on the things inside your vehicle, you live in your vehicle, everything you own was within the vehicle, you want to carry insurance on that stuff. Many states will make it impossible. If it's not listed as an RV, you can't get insurance on the stuff in them. Never, never, never tell your insurance agent that you've taken a van and turned it into an RV. You've modified it. I know numerous people who called them and said, I want to insure my belongings in my van. I've made it into a camper. I live in it now. They said, that's fine. This will be your last payment. We're dropping you. You'll never get insurance with us again. I know several people that's happened to. Don't ever tell them you've converted a van to an RV and you're living in it, because it'll cost you your insurance almost always. These are big, big issues. And so I want you to be aware of them. One state will make it very easy. One state will make it very hard. Most states will make it hard. A few states will make it impossible. Of course, you just buy an RV. You're going to have to live with the fact. Find out how hard it is to turn a vehicle from a regular vehicle, commercial vehicle, into an RV before you do anything like that. Okay, I'll move on. That's complicated, and I know it is. But it just has to be said. You need to know that while you're making these decisions. Finally, there's the general cost of living. California has one of the highest costs of living. I'm in California here in the beautiful Alabama hills on the eastern side of the Sierras. Where I was at in Nevada, I drove from Nevada to here, my home base, Pahrump, Nevada. I paid $2.20 for gas. I got here and it's $3 a gallon. It's 80 cents a gallon more for gas here. A lot of places in California it's $1 more per gallon. Some places it's $1.52 if you get remote enough. A lot of places it's 50 to 80 cents more per gallon. Everything here costs more. The regulations in California are much more. So most people, it's an automatic. You wouldn't even consider living in California. However, California has an incredible safety network, and there are people who live here and endure the entire cost of living because the safety net is so good that it's worth it to them. They get more on their disability, they get more on unemployment, they get more on food stamps. If you have a legitimate reason to be on all those things, take them into account before you choose a state as well. The social safety network of a state can really be important in your overall decision. You have to take all these things into account. Maybe no one issue is so important, but if you do the research on all these, you call the state. That's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to end up calling your insurance agent and find out if I move to California, how much is my insurance going to be? If I move to Florida, how much is my insurance going to be? Find that out. Call the DMV. If I register my vehicle there in your state, how much will it be per year to renew the driver's license, to get a new title, on and on and on. You got to do that down the list of all these factors and find out the total number for each state. It's not the individual parts, it's the total number. And some factor may be so big that it overrides all the others. And I can't answer your question about your vehicle and your life. They're all different, so you're just going to have to do the research. These are the questions you need to ask before you choose a state. One state will be cheaper than another. Which is going to be the best for you? I can't answer. You're going to have to find out for yourself. Okay, so, and then another thing to consider is one state is easier to become a resident. With the Real ID Act, that has become a much bigger issue. Most states are now requiring you bring in proof to get a driver's license. South Dakota is still the king here. One day, you've got to take in a rental receipt for one day at a motel or an RV park, hand that to them, and they make you a resident. South Dakota is the king here, and I think it probably always will be. It's easier to become a South Dakota resident. They have an abundance of really good mail forwarders, just in every way. Becoming a South Dakota resident is super, super easy. They want you to become a South Dakota resident. Why? Because if you're a resident of the state, they get federal money based on the population of the state. And so you're a resident, but you never use any of the resources or cost them any money. Money comes in from the feds for you. They may even get enough RVers, full-time RVers, that they'll get another seat in the House of Representatives. It's based on population. And so they have everything to gain by having you a resident and nothing to lose, really, because you're never there. And so they want you to be a resident, although Alaska does not want you to be a resident, and most states want you to prove it, need you to prove it. So in that way, South Dakota is kind of still the winner, and why so many people choose South Dakota. Texas is pretty easy with escapees. The escapees will help you and answer any of your questions. Escapees is a big RV group that's based out of Texas. So a lot of people choose Texas because of the escapees, and it's a good reason. If you've already going to become a member of the escapees, you can use their really good mail forwarding service. Texas used to have really good health insurance options. I think that's changed. They don't now. And so there are a number of reasons why you would choose Texas over the other states. If you don't want to become escapees, and a member of the RV Escapee Club, then it's going to become it's more expensive, because you got to become a member of the club, and then to get their mail forwarding and to get all the other access to all their other information. It costs you a little more, so maybe it's not worth it to you. I don't know. Florida is a very good state and has makes it easier. They do require a lot of proof now. That's Real ID. We're going to cover Real ID and what kind of proof you need to get a driver's license. Still, South Dakota is by far the winner here. It's by far easier. I'm a Nevada resident. To get a driver's license in Nevada, you have to bring an affidavit from someone saying you are a resident. They vouch for you. You're a resident. Do you know anyone that will do that? Probably not. Or you have to bring in here's how you can do it in Nevada if you want to become a Nevada resident and get a Real ID driver's license. We're going to talk about this later. I don't want to talk about it too much now. You have to move into a motel or an apartment or an RV park for 30 days and then take that receipt in to get your driver's license. Well, it's 30 days in Nevada. It's 1 day in South Dakota. South Dakota is cheaper and easier. And so that's why that's an important issue to you. If you decide now, you can save yourself money and hassle. The cheapest RV park I could find near Pahrump, Nevada, my home base, was $220 a month. I'm going to spend $220 there versus $20 in South Dakota. It's one of the factors in which you choose to become. Okay. How easy is it to get a driver's license and then to renew it? How often do you have to renew it? Commonly, states are 4 years, 5, 6, or 8 years. If it's an 8-year driver's license, that's easier. And that's changing. Nevada is just changing to an 8-year driver's license. And so that is about as good as it gets, I think, is 8 years. And so that's going to make a plus for Nevada, although right now it's still 4. which is, you know, not as good as 5, 6, or 8. How long will your registration last? If it's every year, well, that's a pain. Arizona, for example, will let you go 5 years. And if you pay for the whole 5 years up front, it's cheaper. My 2001 Chevy van was $120 for 5 years. I've got a tag on my license plate that says 21. I got it in 16 when I'm making this video, and I don't have to register my vehicle again until 2021. That's a big plus to me, but it's not the overriding factor, but it's a factor. Jury duty. Does the state make it easy to get out of jury duty? South Dakota makes it very easy. Another reason why people choose South Dakota. If you can sign an affidavit saying you're a full-time RVer, you don't live in the state, and they will exempt you from jury duty. Really a big thing. Voting. How hard is it to vote in that state? Well, we can all vote absentee, but sometimes it's easier and harder. So the simple bottom line is that if you have very low income, the big three won't work for you. The simple fact that you can't get health insurance may override your desire to become residents of those states. Okay, so there you have it. I know it's a lot of long discussion and a lot of material covered. I'm sorry about that. But the information is yours, and you can go back and watch this video and study it. And again, go to my blog. I have a blog post about this that you can see. I'll put up the link at the bottom of the screen. You can see it. Go to my forums. If you go to the cheaprvliving.com/forums, we have these discussions about Obamacare all the time. You post your question there, and I'll answer it. A lot of people will answer it. And so there you have it. Just a gigantic amount of information to all digest at once. And you can always feel free to contact me, and I will try and explain it, especially through the forums where a lot of people will try and explain it to you. Okay, that's enough. I'll stop now and shut my mouth. And we'll talk to you next time when we'll talk about getting a mail forwarder. How will you get your mail on the road or while you don't have a home base? So we'll see you then. Hi folks, sorry about that awkward transition. I had a problem with that video and I had to just reshoot it again. Right now I'm in Arizona in the beautiful Coconino National Forest shooting this. One more thing I want to cover really quickly before I call it good enough, and that's Obamacare. Obamacare has had a tremendous impact in the state you choose in 2 different ways. The first way is when you use Obamacare, you have to choose your state of residence and you have to choose your health care policy from what that state offers. If the state doesn't offer a nationwide health care policy, then you can only get your health insurance, you can only see a doctor in that state. So if I'm a South Dakota resident, but I and I never ever go to South Dakota, I'll never ever be able to see my doctor. Emergency room visits are always covered by every health insurance policy. So I can always go to the emergency room in Arizona or California or Florida if I spend my winters there. I'm not spending my winter in South Dakota, take my word for it. And probably you aren't either. So if I'm wintering in Arizona and I need to see a doctor, how am I going to do it? I'm going to drive all the way back to South Dakota in the winter, and boy, what a misery that's going to be. So the thing is to either choose a state that has nationwide policies, which is not the big 3. South Dakota, Florida, and Texas, nor Nevada offer nationwide policy. So essentially you can't use your health insurance in any of those places. So choose your location, your state by location. I chose Nevada because I'm always within a circle. I'm putting up a map now, and you'll see that within a day's drive, a long day's drive, I can be into Nevada and see my doctor. Nevada is my home base, so I can see my doctor twice a year if I want to on the way to Arizona and away from. Arizona is my winter base. And so I can see him regularly. It's part of my plan. It's part of my regular travels. Florida's far away. Texas is far, far away. I'll never visit either one, hardly. In emergency, I can go to emergency room, but then I got to go see my doctor. They won't keep covering emergency room visits. You got to go to your doctor. So choose a state that offers choose a state that offers a nationwide health insurance policy through Obamacare, through the exchange, or choose a state that's local to you can get to often. I chose a state that's local to me. The second issue is, what if you're very low income? And you know, in America today, a lot of us are very low income. There's a lot of minimum wage people who are just barely making $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. If you're low income, you cannot get Obamacare. I believe it's $10,000, $11,000, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know the exact number. You'll have to look it up yourself, and it'll probably change year to year. If you're too low income, you can't get Obamacare. You have to go to your state and get something called enhanced Medicaid. You're going to get on Medicaid. It's a federal program, but it's administered by the states. So, and here's the problem. The big three don't offer enhanced Medicaid. The big three are all conservative states. They all hate Obamacare. They hate Obama, and they hate Obamacare. And so they chose not to offer enhanced Medicaid to their citizens. Florida, Texas, South Dakota do not offer enhanced Medicaid. If you make $10,000 and you're a resident of one of those states, you're out of luck. You're not getting health insurance from the federal government for free. I don't know how you're going to get it. You're probably just simply not. However, so one of your things you want to do is choose a state that offers enhanced Medicaid and also doesn't have an income tax. And what does that happen to be? Nevada. I'm a resident of Nevada, and they do offer enhanced Medicaid. I do make more than $10,000, so I don't qualify. I make about $24,000 a year, and Obamacare and my insurance policy costs me $400 a month. I can't afford $400 a month. I wouldn't do it. Obamacare pays $350 of that $400. I'm only paying $50 a month for my health insurance policy because I'm on Obamacare. Pretty good deal. The penalty this year in 2016, I believe, is $700 if you don't get it. It would cost me more not to get the insurance policy, and you have to pay it. It's in your IRS taxes. I pay taxes. It'll be right in my 1040 form. It will cost me more not to have insurance than it costs me to get it, so I bought it. I mean, it only makes sense. There are people who are going to write and complain, well, you're just a leech, you're sponging off the government. They forced me to take it. I'd be a fool not to take it. And so I took it. And if you think I'm a leech and a horrible human being, that's up to you. You make that decision. So if you're very low income, choose a state that offers enhanced Medicaid. That's very important. And so I wanted to cover those two things before we go. So now I'm done. We're going to go on next to our next video, which will be on getting your driver's license. And what about an address? How do you get a real address? You can go to a mail forwarder or get a P.O. box and have a mailing address, but you need a real physical residential address you live at. You have to have one. And so I'm going to tell you all about that and how you can get one in our next video. So thanks for putting up with all this. It's long and drawn out, and I apologize, but it's a lot of information, and I really want to get it out to you, and I hope it helps you make some good decisions. All right, so we'll see you on our next video, and until then, be sure and subscribe to our channel and like us on YouTube.